The second hour, we'll bring on friend of the show, Isaac Schade from the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Isaac, always great to have you with us here. What's up, my friend?
What's up, Brian? How we doing?
We're doing good, and I had to bring you on once all this Danny Hurley stuff went down, because it really it gripped the college basketball world here over the last week. So I'll just give you the floor on it. Like, when this is all going down, what thoughts are hitting you? How'd you take it all in?
I got to be honest, Brian, I got it wrong. On Friday when all this news broke. I thought he would end up leaving, just knowing that Danny Hurley has been saying that he wants to eventually get to the NBA. And I didn't see it coming. And I think that's part of it is neither really did he. And so initially I said, man, I think he's going to be gone. But really, on Monday morning, when we knew he was going to be making a decision, as you started to see the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs coming together and his wife Andrea getting out of the car and high-fiving UConn folks, all the breadcrumbs started to add up even before the announcement was made official. So here's the biggest thing for me, Brian, is I love it for our sport of college basketball, man. I think it's great. People are always looking for reasons to poop on college basketball, and whatever thing that happens is like a referendum on college basketball, G League Ignite and OTE and all these things. And, well, college basketball has now put G League Ignite in the grave, and Danny Hurley's staying, So it's just nice to get a win for college basketball. I absolutely love it. And for the rest of his life, he can now say, hi, nice to meet you, Dan Hurley, back-to-back national champion, and the guy who turned down Kentucky and the Lakers in the same offseason. My man, that's a business card right there.
Yeah, he turned down, I don't even know, like 150, 100, be added up, $160 million, $170 million this offseason. He turned down a lot of money. UConn's they're gonna write him a nice check too, but my goodness, it's hard to say no to that cash. I think it's certainly from the college basketball perspective, I think that's the biggest takeaway, that, man, college hoops finally won one of these battles here, or college sports. It's happening a ton in football as well, with coaches leaving for the NFL, and you look at Jim Harbaugh and things like that. Is Hurley the face of college basketball now to you, Isaac? I mean, it's so hard for it to be a player anymore, right? Because, they're here, gone, they're everywhere. Is Hurley the guy when you think college hoops? Is he the first name and face that comes up these days?
I think he's put himself on the Rushmore of it just because of, A, being the back-to-back national champion you're going to be, and B, because of what a wild character and personality he is. And that's part of why this is so good for college basketball as well, is because Dan Hurley, man, he might as well be in the cartoons because he's wild. For me, the elder statesmen right now are guys like Bill Self and Tom Izzo, right? Like, those names are still around. Mm-hmm. But in a day and age where we've lost some of those other elder statesmen, like a Mike Krzyzewski, like a Jay Wright, like a Roy Williams, right, where those guys are gone now, we need other names and faces. And I think Dan Hurley's got to be in there alongside of those guys. And I would add in like a Mark Few and, just some of those others. But he has certainly put himself in that conversation with them.
Yeah, I mean, for so many years, I mean, the quick answer to that question was Coach K, and then there's a little vacuum here, and it feels like Hurley is certainly go figure, since Bobby played for K, but it feels like Danny has stepped into that vacuum here, and this whole thing was just wild to watch it play out. What was it? Was it Thursday morning when we got the Woj bomb, and then it played out over the course of the weekend? It was just like, what is going on a day in, day out basis here? Obviously, Hurley's a good basketball coach, and I know he has NBA aspirations. I've never watched the guy and the way he coaches. Like, none of it screams NBA. All of it screams college to me. Like, if he had taken that job or does take an NBA job at some point in the future, like, do you think it works for him in the NBA, or would he have to alter the way he goes about things?
I think it will work. And that he'll have to alter the way he goes about things. Both are true. Also, I got to know my audience, and people are yelling at me because when I said elder statesman stepping out, I was remiss in not mentioning Jim Boeheim's name. That just occurred to me. So, man, I take all arrows that were just shot at me, and I apologize. In terms of Danny Hurley in the NBA, look, one of the things that's true about him as a coach is that he's been successful at every level he's coached, and he's come up through a bunch of different levels of coaching basketball. And yes, he has had to change either coaching style or basketball scheme or other things along the way. You know, right now, one of the things that's true about UConn is that they run one of the most sophisticated and unique college basketball offenses that we have. Now, a lot of that is due to the son of a famous actor, Luke Murray, is kind of their offensive coordinator, if you'll allow me that. And I think the thing is, that Dan Hurley is a smart enough guy to know that if and when I do eventually go to the NBA, I'm going to have to look myself in the mirror and say, what's going to work that worked at UConn and what's not going to work that worked at UConn, and how do I adjust so that I can be successful? I think he is proud of who he is and what he does, but I don't think he's so arrogant to think that he can do exactly the same thing at the next level.
Obviously he's been a Northeast guy the whole time. Like that's the other thought I had. That like, all right, say in some hypothetical world this wasn't the Lakers' job. I get how prestigious the Lakers thing is, but had this been, I don't know, the Celtics, the Sixers, or the Knicks, aka the Northeast jobs, and obviously all the situations there are pretty good right now. Like, do you think he was gonzo in that situation? Had it been a Northeast situation? I do wonder how close it was.
100%. I mean, I think that's such a huge part of it is he's a homeboy. His dad's still there. From all accounts, Andrea, his wife, wants to stay home and close here. And so if and when he does eventually take a job, it wouldn't shock me at all if it was one of those three teams you just mentioned, any team up there. I think because it was the Lakers, right? Like if it had been like the Clippers or the Jazz, I don't even think he might have considered a West Coast move. It's just, I think the Lakers lore of it all has a lot to do with that. And you have to entertain those conversations at that point. So yes, spot on, Brian. If and when a job up that way becomes available and he doesn't, it's kind of like Rick Pitino at St. John's. It's like, oh, I can take this job and I don't have to move? Sure, let's do that, right? Like, so that is what's going to make sense to me for him for an NBA move.
All right, we got Isaac Schade here at the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, and we say all this, and then you look at the portal off season and the retention off season that UConn's been having. Not that anyone's going to predict anyone like logically to just go win a third straight national championship, but there's no good reason right now they can't, right, Isaac? The way he's assembled the roster again for next year.
Right, exactly. Because 2 years ago, who in the offseason was saying, watch, UConn's about to be a juggernaut? Last season, who was saying, oh, watch, UConn's about to also, again, be a juggernaut and run it back? No, nobody was doing that, I mean, maybe some random conspiracy theorist out there, but it's like it just wasn't a thing. So you and I would be idiots, Brian, to sit here and say they can't do it again. I don't necessarily look at it and see how all the pieces fit, and they're the elite team in the country. But good grief, I didn't see it last year or the year before either. And so I'm not going to try to pretend that I'm Nostradamus now. And I think that's a big part of this conversation is that some people are going to look at this, and if UConn, let's say they lose in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight, there are going to be people who try to bash Dan Hurley's decision as saying, see, you came back to win a third and all you did was make the second weekend and then you lost. Come on, man.
Yeah.
That cannot be a referendum on this decision in any way. And so if this is the right decision for his family and the time and what's going on, cool. And we can't allow the UConn Huskies' success or lack thereof in 2024-25 to dictate that this was the right or wrong move. And also along with that, how do you even determine what is success, right? Because being one of the last 16 teams standing in the nation is by no means a failure of a season.
No. You stack those up. It's a great season if you get that far. But the standard they've set here is one thing. I know here around Syracuse, Isaac, we were all rooting for Hurley to leave because it really would have opened up the Northeast recruiting wise. Like we're looking at it from Red Autry's perspective, and he's been killing it out there recruiting of late. And we're waiting on Kaya and Anthony here. But man, that's one of those things where like Hurley's got such a grip right now. It's like, well, there'd be a little vacuum if he had gone it. It feels like Red would have been set to pounce on something like that.
Yeah, man, you're spot on with that. It's tough because he's gobbling them up and they're going to be successful again. Getting Alex Caravan back was huge for them, for him deciding to not stay in the draft. I haven't made my preseason All-American teams, but I imagine he will be on one of them. And they get Aiden Mahaney in, a transfer from St. Mary's. I really thought they were going to land Kobe Brea, the Dayton transfer. He ends up going to Kentucky, but still a lot of really good pieces for UConn, and they just keep bringing them in, man. It's wild.
All right, the portal season, I mean, it never ends, but it is just about wrapped up, give or take here. What are your main takeaways, Isaac, from what you've seen in this portal spring?
Well, once again, we're seeing that, this reminder for folks, this is the last year of COVID eligibility. The class that is utilizing fifth-year options next season, this is the last one. And what's interesting about that, Brian, I actually talked about that on Locked On College Basketball today. We are getting back 5 of our 15 AP All-Americans from last year. See if I can get them off the top of my head. It's Chani Broome from Auburn, Hunter Dickinson from Kansas, R.J. Davis from North Carolina, Caleb Love from Arizona, and Mark Sears from Alabama. That's who I was leaving out. And here's what's wild. All 5 of those guys are fifth-year players utilizing that COVID eligibility next year. Yeah. And so in 4 of the 5, R.J. Davis being the lone non-person on that list, 4 of the 5 have transferred at some point in their collegiate careers. And so, I mean, it's just we're continuing to see that be the thing, Brian, is obviously the transfer portal's not going anywhere. I would expect that next offseason we're going to see a fewer transfers just because of we don't have as many classes now because we will, anybody who's a fourth-year senior this year, they're done. This is it for them in terms of eligibility. So that's something to keep an eye on. But I think the thing for me, once again, is it's going to be these teams that are older, whether through their own development or through the transfer portal, that are going to be successful. Obviously, you've got teams like Rutgers up there in y'all's neck of the woods with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper coming in. These electric freshmen. But I don't expect Rutgers to be all that crazy awesome because of relying on freshmen. Same, you look at Duke bringing in Cooper Flagg, who's going to be a phenomenal basketball player this season. But relying on him to be your dude in 2024-25 has not proven to be the measure of success it was even just 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so, Brian, what I expect to see is as I look around the landscape is these teams that have brought in experienced veteran players, can they get them to all be connected and united as a team? And if so, that's the teams that are going to be favored.
And the ACC-SEC matchups just came out earlier this afternoon here, and you mentioned these veterans. And Q said Tennessee is going to be a fun one down at Thompson-Boling, but Carolina and Bama in I believe that's in Chapel Hill with 2 of those guys you mentioned, Sears and Davis. Like that's a circle the game, clear out the calendar kind of thing.
It absolutely is. And here's the thing for Carolina folks, they've just been taking L's to Alabama left and right here lately. You go back 2 seasons ago, Carolina lost to Alabama in 4 overtimes at PK 85. And then last offseason, they lost a recruiting battle. Jaron Stevenson went to Alabama. His mom had played at Carolina. They live really close, and he decided to reclass and go to Bama, and then obviously lost to them in the Sweet 16 last year. So I know that the good folks in Chapel Hill are champing to get that phrase right, champing at the bit to get some measure of revenge against the Crimson Tide next year.
All right, that is looking through the matchups like that definitely appears to be the major one. Duke and Auburn obviously will be
Duke and Auburn. Yep.
Houston, Tennessee though, like that feels pretty high on the list here. Of when I'm looking at these matchups like that, that's a potentially really intriguing game coming up down the line.
Oh, the Duke and Auburn one?
Yeah, Duke and Auburn, yeah, but I'm saying Houston, Tennessee down at Thompson-Boling. I'm looking at these matchups.
Oh, my word.
There's someone here that I'm like, what are these games? Houston, Tennessee, like that could be a pretty good one about a month into the season.
I'm very excited for that one. The one that I'm looking at the ACC graphic of it, you got Wake Forest, Texas A&M. That's going to be another really good one. Hunter Salas came back to Wake Forest. Texas A&M still has Wade Taylor IV, so that's a great guard matchup there. So we've got, some really good. Clemson versus Kentucky should be a good one with the Tigers hosting the Wildcat. I'm just very excited for some of these. I mean, I think they missed a big opportunity to have like Louisville against Arkansas. I think that would have been hilarious. Obviously, we get Louisville, Kentucky every season in December anyway, so they don't have to do that. But that was the one big miss by the schedulers there was Louisville and Arkansas.
Yeah, that would have been good, and put the game at Louisville, and we could just have a great time with
Kenny Payne back.
Yeah, there we go. Kenny Payne, Coach Cal, let's go. That would be somebody doesn't have a good enough sense of humor to pull that one off. That's too bad. All right, Isaac, my friend, always great to chat some hoops with you. We'll have to do it again soon. All right.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Have a great one.
There he is. Check him out, Isaac Schade, on the Locked On College Basketball podcast at Isaac Schade on the Twitter, on the X, and check out his podcast. Great stuff on college hoops.